Hey guys, in this review I'm going to review the second book in the Beauty series, and that is Beauty's Punishment. And so Tristan and Beauty and a few other slaves have been sold to the village as punishment since the last book, where they disobeyed, and so where bad slaves go is to the local village where they become just common slaves, and it's considered a really bad punishment for those who have not lived up to the standard, and in a few months hopefully they'll be reformed and able to work their way back to the kingdom. But until then they have to be sold off in the market like animals to the highest bidder. And that is the basically where we start off in this book. And so Tristan and Beauty from the last book are brought to the public auction block, where they are spread open naked, bent over and spanked to the highest bidder. And so Beauty goes to a mistress and Tristan goes to his master, which happens to work for the royal family and the queen. And the majority of this book is actually about Tristan, which is weird that it's called Beauty's Punishment in the first place, but I guess no one knows Tristan enough to sell copies of the book, and you want Beauty on the title. Anyway, so yeah, this village is just like you would expect. It's the next level of weird. Where the castle in the first book was mainly just spanking for the majority of the novel, and in this novel explores way more different kinds of I guess sexual fantasies or fetishes that people would have. Like Tristan, he's sold to his master and he becomes a pony. So we get pony play really into this book, where they are literally ponies. Tristan and the other slaves are harnessed into carriages with the bits in their mouth and everything that you would see on a horse carrying a buggy. You see it, and they have horsetails shoved up their butts, not to be funny or anything, but that's actually what happens. And they learn to carry the carriages, and they're called ponies, and they carry the owners and the masters or whoever else down the streets, and they go see local shops. And the shops in the villages are not, in this village is not like your local village you would see in Old Fairytale. It's they have harness shops, and they go to the district that sells different kinds of strap-ons and butt plugs and stuff, with the examples on display, like guys bent over with the butt plugs and everything shoved in them in different sizes and different fashions, and that's how they display their sales. And so yeah, that's basically what happens to Tristan in the book. And then Beauty sold to a mistress, where she's being passed around to all the soldiers in town, and even actually used by the mistress herself, which involves a lesbian scene, which is very short, but is in here finally in this series. And this book is mostly 90% gay erotica, not to bash it, but that is what it is, because it's mostly a story about Tristan and his master. And they go into very deep details about the relationship of the master and Tristan. And so it becomes, like I said, more of a gay erotica, where it's about his story. So yeah, so Beauty had the weirdest that Beauty gets, that this book takes it in the story, is there's a scene where the mistress straps Beauty to the table and puts butter on her naked self, on Beauty, and brings the cat, a white cat, and has the cat lick off the butter on the nipples and down there too. So I guess, I don't know if you would call it bestiality or not, but like I said, you have a good wide range of different kinds of sexual things in this book. But in this book also, I would say that when there's story, there's a good story, but it's kind of like one big sex scene. You know well, which is the intention. I've heard this book and series called Three Books of Pornography at the time. It's basically what the story is. You know, you always wait in the movie for the big sex scene on these movies you watch. The whole book, the whole series is a big sex scene with little bits of story thrown in. That's how I describe the series. What's funny though is that in the village, I think it's pretty funny. There's a place of public punishment that those who are really punished go, and how they are punished. I thought it was kind of funny. Like I said, like when you do services and you get money for your master to be paid, you would have a bucket on over your neck, and it would like a trough, and they put money in here. But in the place of public punishment, that they would put a sack in your butthole with strings out, and you'd have to go around on your hands and knees, and the people in the building would shove the coins in your butt. This is in the book. Shove coins in your butt, and that's how they would pay you for. And then they would pull the sack out at the end of the day to see how much you made. If that sounds like your cup of tea and stuff, then go for it. That's actually what this book, like I said, it goes into extreme fantasies in this story, so it's more in depth and more broad when it comes to that kind of stuff than the first book was. So yeah, maybe I figure that maybe I'm like the slaves at the beginning, that they don't know what they're getting into, and then they don't like it at first, but by the end of the book, if you're able to make it through and finish the book, you end up not minding. You end up thinking it's okay and normal, that this is the world they live in. So don't worry about how odd that is, because it is like another world. And that's actually how the slaves are in this book, that they're brought into this place and they don't have an idea what they're expecting or getting into, and then they hate it or don't like it, and then by the end of the book they end up it's just normal day of life. And that's the best way to describe it. So you're either going to hate or love this series, or tolerate it. It took a while to get into this book. I just struggled to actually read it because it was stuff that was way out there. But by the end of it, you get used to it, or you end up throwing it away and hating it. But if this is for you, I would say if you're into this, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. Because, like I said, she goes way more broad into different things, way more than what was in the first book. And when there is story, what little there is that would be called story, it's actually good and interesting. At least and if you made it this far, you want to see where it goes and see where it, quote, ends, or at least at the original trilogy's time. So if it's your thing, I'd give it a 4 out of 5. If it's not your thing, I'd give it probably a 2 out of 5. So with all that said, I'll give it a 3 out of 5 in the middle. So it's a alright book. You're into this, you're going to really love it. You're not into this kind of fantasy stuff, you're not going to love it. So it deserves about a 3 out of 5. Anyway, that's Beauty's Punishment, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.